What is up, Crusaders of Crypt Nation? Episode 11?
Episode 11.
August 6th. Okay, good. We're in the right...
Wrong. August 5th.
August 5th. Okay, we're still in the right place. And you're in the right place, too, because we've got a lot of big news coming up for you. What do we have on the table today?
Today we have the Bitcoin hash rate hitting a sustained all-time high.
Love it.
And the price is definitely reflecting that as well. Litecoin halving is done.
Litecoin halving is successfully completed.
We'll talk about the fallout of that.
We have IBM launching some more supply chain partners and products.
Yes.
We have a quick update on the crypto sitch in China.
And Coinbase intends to list some new coins.
Bag holders out there, be
excited, potentially? Could this be what kicks off alt season?
We say it every time. I don't know. I just don't know. But let's just get started. So there's some big news coming out of the Bitcoin camp today. That the network has officially reached a new all-time high in hash rate. So this is extremely significant because a network's hash rate is more or less equivalent with that network's security.
That's right. And it's not just a spike in hash rate. Like, we've seen an actual higher spike, but this is a consistent stabilized rate for over the past 2 weeks. We've seen over 71 quintillion hashes per second.
Jeez.
So that's bigger than quadrillion. That's quintillion.
That's quintillion.
Yeah.
This is a hash rate that is now 10% higher than it was in July. And so, yeah, so as a little refresher, the hash rate, so the whole Bitcoin system is very dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this difficulty adjustment algorithm that targets 10-minute block times. So when miners drop off the network, that means there's less hash rate and it's harder to get to that 10-minute block time.
Yeah.
And so the difficulty adjusts downwards, and the inverse is true. The more miners that come on the network, you essentially are getting more hash rate, more competition, and a quicker ability to mine those blocks, so the difficulty adjusts upwards.
Yeah, so essentially what it does is it watches and it sees how many hashes are being created, and it says, okay, how many hashes are needed to make a block every 10 minutes? And it adjusts that all the way up. So at some point, there was, 100 hashes a second.
Right, back in the beginning.
Yeah,
yes.
so, the difficulty was very, very little. They needed to have a lot of incentive for people to even perform this work. But now there's so much involved that we're literally at 71 quintillion hashes per second.
So we're seeing continued difficulty rise, which is a good sign, and continued hash rate and higher prices. So all in all, feeling pretty bullish on Bitcoin. We're taking out some pretty significant technical levels of price resistance, kind of in that 10 and 11,000 area. So I would not be surprised to see all-time highs this year. I mean, I don't think anybody would.
Yeah, so that's really
for Bitcoin.
awesome.
That being said, some of the other coins, for instance, Litecoin today at 3:16 a.m. Pacific completed its halving. So we talk a lot about that in our most recent episode, and we don't want to bog this episode down too much with talking about the halving, since we just had a huge conversation on it with the Litecoin Foundation, which we highly encourage you to check out on iTunes, on Spotify, on SoundCloud. It's in our Twitter. So go ahead and check that out. But the funny thing that we saw was a set, like almost an exact to the T, 7% price rise right as at 316. From 316 to 320, price hit 7% and then came right back down. But
interesting. Maybe
the algos were busy.
Interesting. So the previous halving 4 years ago, the price consistently rose from $1 to $9 before settling back down at $3. And all we saw this time was just a very meager, very brief 7% jump. So it looks like halvings are not as big a deal as people make them out to be.
Yeah, I mean, we did see this whole year, it's up 217% or something since the beginning of the year. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So, but the biggest story is Bitcoin dominance continues to rise.
Yes.
I think it's over 67% now. Yeah. That's insane. So speaking of dominance, IBM, the only major corporation that has their shit together as far as Bitcoin and blockchain. Well, not even Bitcoin, but as far as blockchain goes.
Yeah, I think Microsoft is doing an all right job.
Well, let's never give them credit no matter what they're doing. But they've launched a new project called Trust Your Supplier, which works along with all their other stuff. But this particular project involves onboarding and identity management. So it takes in all the data needed for invoicing and purchase orders and back-end accounting stuff like ISO certifications, bank accounts, tax certifications, insurance, blah, 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 blah. But early clients...
Important stuff.
Yeah, I guess. Not really crypto, but real-world stuff that matters. Real-world stuff. And real-world companies like Anheuser-Busch, GlaxoSmithKline, Lenovo, Nokia, Vodafone, and more have already joined in. So IBM continues to be a huge leader in pushing blockchain into the real world. So great job to them. And speaking of the real world, what's going on in China?
Yeah, so China, we still got to do a little bit more research on what exactly is going on in China, but there's these trade wars, right, where everybody has this deficit. Trump wants to export more soybeans and agricultural goods to China. China doesn't want to buy them. The president of China is tweeting, we're not going to buy American goods. Trump's tweeting this and that. Now the central bank of China is trying to devalue their currency to make it look like they have more exports than they actually do. So it's all just kind of a mess. I know recently we just broke a $7 peg that's historically been there for 11 years between the dollar and the offshore renminbi or something like that.
So, long story short, mommy and daddy are fighting again.
Yes.
Okay, so this is so important. Why?
There's protests. I think China's like invading Hong Kong.
Oh man, we don't have to get into that.
Stay tuned because there's gonna be. This is a big story, but
only beginning.
It's only beginning.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be a big one, but we shouldn't probably spend too much time on it.
Yeah. So this is why blockchain is so important. So you can actually prove what's real and what isn't, especially coming out of China, where no one really knows. So an essay that was going to be part of a presentation at the upcoming Invest Asia 2019 conference was compiled by Dovey Wan, who's a partner for Primitive Ventures, on the state of crypto in China. So the deal is the law and the enforcement of law are not really the same thing, just like here in the US. Bitcoin, however, is considered property and can't be used as cryptocurrency. However, it can be traded OTC, it can be exchanged as stores of value, and the biggest, I don't know if it's the biggest, but a major exchange is just OTC over WeChat. And then there's still a couple huge Chinese exchanges like Huobi and OKX and some others.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are, so since China's devaluing their currency artificially, people are trying to flee, people who are holding wealth in that currency are trying to get rid of that currency because it's getting hyperinflated essentially.
Yeah.
And so a good thing to do is put it in Bitcoin. So we're seeing kind of this tandem rise of, offshore Chinese dollars and Bitcoin.
And oddly enough, they're being moved into Tether.
Yeah.
China's a huge advocate, well not advocate, but user of Tether.
Right.
They don't care about any of the FUD surrounding it. They don't care if it's real or not because
people believe it's real.
Yeah, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
So as far as the Chinese government goes, it really hasn't passed a whole bunch of laws to try and abolish cryptocurrency like some other countries have. Most of the laws that have been passed are in the spirit of trying to protect investors from scams, but you can still mine Bitcoin, you can still move Bitcoin around to some degree, but a lot of the stuff is just done OTC because the government is so draconian that people just try and mind their own business as best as possible.
And lastly, we have Coinbase. Everybody knows and loves Coinbase, and they have Algorand, Harmony, Cosmos, Dash, Matic, Ontology, and Waves, and Decred, if we can say them yet. They are purported to be listing soon. Coinbase also stated that they plan on listing 90% of the cryptocurrency market cap, which
that's like something Craig Wright would say.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
it just seems not so, genuine, because there's not 90% of the crypto market cap is worth listing, right?
It's not at all. Like, not even 90% of that 90% is even alive, really.
Yeah.
Truthfully. Like, I would say maybe 10% at most. 10% is like what the top 250. So to be generous, 20%, top 500. If you're not in the top 500, like, you're really, really doing something wrong. Even if you're a legitimate company, like, you need to at least be in that top 500 at this point.
Yeah.
If you want to be considered for Coinbase, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Now, Coinbase was the holy grail because of its exclusivity. You knew if a token was on Coinbase, it was a good project. It had already been researched and vetted, and there's a good chance that it wasn't just going to go belly up. And now Coinbase seems to be straying away from that. Whether that was their intention or not at the beginning, maybe it was just because of regulations. But now
I think it was all regulation. I think for them it's smart to get as many assets listed as possible. I mean, they want to be the New York Stock Exchange of crypto, right? And your bank account.
That's what they're going to end up being. So it's going to be a little bit less easy for the average retail consumer. You're going to have to go back to doing your own research, which you should anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But Coinbase, if you're a shareholder in Coinbase, I mean, you've got to be just drooling with excitement.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fresh retail. But that being said, this does it for us. August 6th, episode 11, the beginning of our third week of Today in Crypto. Stay tuned, because we got a lot more coming. See you tomorrow.